Ready? Okay, we will call the May 10th Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. If you'd join us for the pledge and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will call the May 10th Crow Wing County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. If you'd join us for the pledge and a moment of silence. All right, thank you. We are obviously having a little bit of issues with our screen, so we're gonna try it without and see how that goes. So next item, open forum. I've got two forms filled out. Troy Scheffler.
This is America, and we respect the Constitution, but we also pursue the Constitution, and I do not see the board doing that. I find you guys to be weak and ineffectual when it comes to pursuing and affecting the Constitution. We need a board with the strength of the grizzly, the reflexes of a puma, and the wisdom of a man. From fighting 2 seasons in the octagon, I will teach you these skills. In Crow Wing County, we also use the buddy system. As you can see, no more flying solo. We're always going to have someone watching our backs at all times. Now, you guys know why I'm here. You know what happened. The paper covered it. And by the way, I have to give them credit for catching my curves perfectly. What ended up happening is I made a data request because I found out that the Sheriff's Department was not only deleting comments, but they were hiding comments, something the paper did not cover because Mr. Houle did not tell them that was happening. In fact, Mr. Houle won't tell me, and I should say the county won't tell me who even has access to the sheriff's page. So I don't know who exactly is doing this stuff because they're covering for him. That's an issue. That's an issue with the sheriff, because that's one of his employees also, therefore being the county employee. And by the way, when we're talking about image, the sheriff needs to improve his image. He needs to discipline his image. Do you think I got where I am today by dressing with a vest like Peter Pan over here? No. Take a look what I'm wearing, people. Do you think anyone wants to take a roundhouse kick to the face while I'm wearing these bad boys?
Please address the board, not the audience.
Amen. Forget about it. So I've said what I said about that, and there's something that I need to bring up to you guys, because one of our patriots fell on the battlefield recently, and everyone in the county, in fact, anyone, period, should respect this man, go to his GoFundMe, pay heed to what he's done and what he's tried to do. His name's Kelly Avelsgaard. He was in a really bad accident. He's in really rough shape. And therefore his family is too. So if anyone can offer their prayers at least, because again, we're in a God-fearing country, that'd be amazing. But I'm going to tell you guys, from now on, it's going to be as simple as this. We're just going to break the wrist and walk away. It's that simple.
Thank you. Next up, Doug Kern.
I just wanted to say a special thank you to the commissioners that attended the Crow Wing Association of Townships meeting. Thank you, Commissioner Corrin and Brecken and Rosemary Franz. And special thanks to Paul for addressing the election integrity. I appreciated that. The biggest reason why I appreciated that is it gave me an opportunity to address the township officers as far as keeping our doors open and not doing mail-in balloting. As officers, it's our duty to keep our doors open for elections. It's just, we have absentee ballots, we don't need mail-in. And, it goes back to, this is not a personal thing. The thing that we're requesting or has been requested as far as the integrity of the election. It's not an attack on Crow Wing County. It's an attack on the system. It's investigating the system, I guess is a better way to say it. So thank you.
Thank you. And then we have one addressing the subdivision, which I think we will, Dennis.
Dennis, we're gonna address, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
We're gonna address that later on if you want to speak at that time.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I wasn't sure if it was on that list. All right. Next item is review and approve April 26th meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Barrows. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Review and approve today's agenda. Are there any additions?
Mr. Chair, I would like to add under additional business a discussion that Commissioner Franzine and I listened to and took part in from the MICA organization.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Coring.
Nothing else. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple questions. Is Debbie on the line?
She is.
Okay, on 5.8 and 5.9, we have the renewal of a couple liquor licenses, but it says 2021, and we're sitting in 2022, so I'm confused on that one, on those
Sorry,
two
my
items.
camera was here. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Barrows, this is a new licenses were in the existing current period, which was the 2021 through June 30th of 2022 license cycle. So it's technically still a 2021 license because that's the period that we are still in.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
With that, I would make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Second. I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Coring. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Sure I didn't miss. Okay, so next up, land services.
All right, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. As you know, on April 12th, the county board did pass changes to the land use ordinance, which one of the changes was to prohibit administrative subdivisions in the Shoreland district. Those changes technically take in effect on May 11th, which is per the land use ordinance 30 days after it's approved. Since that time, and we've had even a couple before that time, we've had administrative subdivision applications that have been submitted through our software for consideration for those splits in the Shoreland district. And in fact, we've had 11 of those applications. I've submitted all of those to you in an email recently, and actually I think all of you have the paper kind of summary copies of those applications. So we've got 11 administrative subdivision applications in the Shoreland district. What we're looking for this morning is some guidance and a decision. Technically, we have a couple of routes that we could take. One is we could go the route where we have 60 days under the law, the 60-day rules, to consider processing this request. We could hold those administrative subdivisions for the entire 60 days, and then we would reject those under the new ordinance provisions where they would need to be potentially split under the platting process, which includes a public hearing and a different process. So that would have to go through a public hearing and county board approval. That's one option, is we could hold those, reject them as administrative subdivisions, and have that go through a public hearing platting process. The other option to consider is to take those 11 applications and process those under the current, soon-to-be, beginning May 11th, it would not be the current process, but under the current over-the-counter administrative subdivision process where they would be approved administratively through staff review. And it wouldn't go through the public hearing platting process. and it would be just the old system that we would have. So that's what we're seeking today, is a decision on which direction you would like us to take as Land Services. As an aside, I did provide a cover page summarizing a little bit of those applications. I know you haven't had a lot of time to look at it. It just talks about the number, how many we've received in each district. I had included some summary stats on the number of parcels that were initially included. We averaged about 1.5 was the original parcel, and then the request of all 11 applications averaged 3.5 lots. So that's kind of the gist of how many lots we're looking at in each application for splitting. So with that, I'll take any questions. Otherwise, I'm sure there'll be some discussion.
Mr. Chair, not really a question, I just wanted to weigh in that I think out of abundance of fairness, I think we should take care of the ones that have in the pipeline and that have been in the pipeline and get those taken care of, but not accept any more. And then get this ordinance changed. That's what I think is, I just don't like it when somebody's in the process and then all of a sudden the rules are changed. I just don't know that that's fair for us to do that.
Mr. Chair, I agree with you, but I would like to separate the two that are in the packet because we have had time to look at those. The others came to us, well, I didn't read them until 1 o'clock in the morning probably, so I haven't had time to properly vet them. I would like to make a motion for the two in the packet, the Watson, because that was, according to this, was approved by county staff on March 18th, and the other one was the Harrison proposal was surveyed in April, before any of this came around. So I want to separate those two and make a motion to approve the two that are in the packet separately from the other 9. And that's a motion.
I'll second that for discussion purposes.
Comments? Or we have a
Mr. Chair,
motion.
just for a question for Commissioner Franzine, how would the other 9 then be handled? I'm confused on
What I
that.
would like to see is, are they, I don't know whether they're complete applications. If they're complete applications, I think they should go forward, but if they aren't complete applications, if they're just placeholders. Also, I want to make sure that on those, that they haven't made themselves into a lot that has no access. And if they have divided into a lot with no access, that they have provided a 66-foot easement to get to that property. And there is one that I noticed has a road. I want to make sure that there's a 66-foot easement there so that later on we don't have issues if people would try to put a road in. So I don't have the answers to those other 9. I do have the answers to the 2 that were in the packet, but not to the 9 that weren't. And so if all of those things are in the other 9, then I want to go forward. And anything that would come in before 5 o'clock tonight, as long as it's a complete application, should be allowed also, because our motion was that we would accept things up until the 11th of May.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioner, all of these applications I do believe are complete, but they're complete as per the current ordinance rules, and that is that we only need a 33-foot easement under that administrative process. So
those don't meet our standards that we put in place for roads.
Right, but those standards don't go into effect until May 11th either. And so these are, I just wanted to clarify that these applications are being submitted or have been submitted under the current up until the May 11th change, which even outside of the first assessment district, we didn't make the change to mandate an administrative subdivision needed to have 66-foot. That was only in the FAD. So all of these applications are meeting the requirements of the current administrative subdivision.
The one that I was looking at that had the road through the middle is in the FAD.
Okay.
Does that have a 66-foot easement?
I would have to take a look at that.
Because if it doesn't, then it should not be, then it's not a completed application according to our rules.
It would be a new rule beginning May 11th, and
Even for FAD?
even for FAD. All of that is effective May 11th. And so if we were to say to this application, you need to meet 66 feet even before May 11th, that would be a bit of an exception that wouldn't be consistent with.
So we could be causing problems for ourselves later on by allowing these to go forward.
Well, that's why effective May 11th, that this provision was going to take into effect.
I know the two that are in the packet don't have that issue. I would still like to separate those two and vote on those separately, because we have had plenty of time to look at those.
Mr. Chair, so just for my clarification, so the one, all these right now meet what our current ordinance is, and they're completed applications. That's what you said?
Correct.
Okay.
So the question is, we have to act on these today before the ordinance change goes into effect, correct?
Yes.
And if we have 11 of them, if we only approve 2, I guess I'm trying to, it kind of defeats the reason we wanted to clear that pipeline of all of them that were out there. So I'm not sure what that will result in for the other 9.
I think the other 9 will get approved too. I just wanted to make sure that the 2 we've had time to study will be able to be approved.
So, Mr. Chair, for clarification, the motion on the table then is for 2 and not the other 9.
And we'll have to make a motion then for the other 9.
So we're looking to give direction to Land Services so they know how to handle all 11 of these.
Jake, did you have something?
Well, I just wanted to clarify that there may be some minor back and forths that we'll need to do with the surveyors, which is normal on any administrative subdivision process. So the concept we were initially looking for was to just process these until they're approved administratively, to continue with that process that we have. I know I said they were complete, that there's certainly always going to be some minor back and forth until we officially stamp them as complete, rather than to approve them administratively with the county board. We can take care of that. It's just more of, do you want to see all the applications processed under the old ordinance, or hold them as a plat versus approving all the apps at this meeting? Is that helpful for clarification?
Yeah, it is,
Yeah.
I guess.
And I
Go
don't
ahead.
think it's fair that we would hold, people have spent money and things, and it is not fair to them for us to change our rules midstream either, so. But the reason I wanted to separate them is for the simple fact that 2 of them are in the packet. We've had plenty of time to study them. I guess it really doesn't matter, but I already made the motion. You know, I can make a motion after that for the other 9.
We could withdraw.
Mr. Chair, I would move an amendment to the motion to approve all of the 11 applications.
Second.
Okay, so,
Or would it be easier just to withdraw the first motion and make a motion for all 11?
Whatever the chair wants to do.
What
if
do you
we
want to do,
withdraw, then we
Chair?
can just make one motion for all 11?
Okay,
Is that-
I'll withdraw.
Is that,
Withdraw.
okay,
Then I'll make the motion for all 11.
okay.
And Mr. Chair, just for clarification, it sounded like the motion was to literally approve them, or is the motion to process them as the current rules?
Process.
Okay. Got it. I just want to make sure.
Mr. Chair, that way, if there is an incomplete application, he's not going to process it.
Right.
Right, and that was my theory with the other 9. The 2 that are in the packet, I know are complete. The other 9, I don't know if they're complete.
And we would not approve them if they did not meet all the requirements.
And that was
Right,
just
okay.
what I was trying to get at.
Right.
So I think we got it. Who made the motion?
I did.
Rosemary.
Seconded.
We have a motion by Commissioner Franzine, second by Commissioner Coring.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry.
that motion was withdrawn.
The
That
original.
would, yes, that was Franzine and Coring, and then Coring and Franzine made a secondary motion, which is now going to
Franzine
be.
and I made the second motion too.
I withdrew my amendment.
Okay.
Okay.
So that was withdrawn, but
Yeah.
the first one was
And then-
not withdrawn, it was
They
just
were both
added?
withdrawn, and then I made a motion to approve all 11, as long as they
process.
are.
Got it.
To process all 11.
Thank you.
All right, so motion by Franzine, second by Coring. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. All right, that should do it. Thank you for your
Clear
feedback, for the help. Thank you.
Clear as mud, right? Okay, so did that answer your question? Oh, okay, perfect. All right. Moving on, item 7, Sheriff.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, good morning. Just a little update on our boat and water division. I think it's timely, being that we're looking at about 3 days away from fishing opener. And for those of you that, let's just say bet, for lack of a better word, bet that we weren't going to have open water, we have open water on 99% of our area lakes. Mille Lacs still has a little bit that's blowing in it, et cetera, but we made it. I didn't know if we were going to. But we just came up to full staff for our boat and water, our seasonal people that we bring back each year. We added our last one yesterday, and he will be coming in for orientation in about a week and a half here. And the good news for our boat and water division is we have a number of returning people from last year, which not only helps with the experience and the expertise coming into that, but also with the fact that we're able to keep those people. And as most of you know, a number of our staff across the sheriff's office and even across the county come from our boat and water division. Now, they started as a rec assistant and worked their way up. So just a reminder for everyone, water temperatures are still very cold. They're basically at the temperature of your cold water, tap water that you run at the home. So we're looking at maybe 51, 52 degrees. Well, today's supposed to be sunny and 74, so we are building on some temperatures there. But we remind everyone, we got a busy weekend coming. Make sure you're set up with all your safety equipment, everything's running, and our boat and water division will be out in full staff, and we're looking forward to a fun and safe, knock on wood, summer for us all. So thank you. Any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer.
Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8, County Attorney.
Good morning, everyone. I didn't bring anything for the board today, but I certainly can answer any questions anybody may have.
Any questions for Don?
Thank you.
Thank you. County Administrator.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we did not hold a senior management team meeting yesterday for lack of agenda items. We don't meet for the sake of meeting. I do have a request for board action in your packet. It is to approve a joint powers purchasing agreement to jointly bid expansion of broadband services. Most of our partnerships have been with a single township or a single city. We have a partnership on the northern side of the county that involves one city, at least 2, if not 3 townships, and the county. And so we would like to use a shared bid for broadband for all of the partners, and then we would figure out the allocation of the costs among the partners after we have an idea of what that bid is. Because we are all of those jurisdictions are subject to the Minnesota bid law, we believe that it is prudent for us to have a joint powers agreement so that we can jointly purchase off of that bid. And so I put forward the joint powers agreement for your consideration. It is being moved through the other partners' processes for their board's approval as we speak. Happy to answer any questions about it. Recommend approval.
Mr. Chair, if there are no questions, I would make a motion that we go into and do a joint powers agreement with the other parties.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Brecken. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Barrows. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Could I, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
You know what, I did just think of a question for the sheriff. Could I go back to that?
You bet.
You know, obviously, all the commissioners and our staff I just want to say thanks to our staff for, there's been, because of the values of a lot of properties have went up, a lot of people are angry, I guess, and about the valuations. And I'm sure the other commissioners have had a lot of calls. I've had a lot of calls, and a couple of people have said, my God, what are you spending the money on? And I think about the bad things that have been happening lately. There's been a murder, and there's how many, I guess a question to the sheriff, this is just one part of county government, but you're in charge of the jail. How many inmates how many bad people do we have in there, and how many people does it take to run that? And this is just a part of what the taxpayers, what am I paying for? Well, you have to pay for these bad guys so that we can keep these bad guys locked up.
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioner, our jail members fluctuate, and really since COVID have fluctuated drastically. We started this week, I believe, at 142 for our inmate population. This morning, I had just looked at the email this morning, I think we're at 103. So there's a number of people that come in on the weekends, and that's where our staffing and our, it's the intake and outtake that really run our staffing numbers. We have DOC guidelines, like any jail, of what we have to have for staffing, and we sit at, I would say, roughly 56 personnel that are associated with the jail. And that's really every asset of what we've got. So that's our correctional officers, our programmers, the staff that is running our booking area, kind of throughout. Paul, I want to throw this out there, and I heard this the other day, and it was shocking. You mentioned the homicide that we just had. And as everyone knows, read our local papers and our local news, et cetera, the deaths that we see. We've got a newer deputy that hasn't been here very long. We're looking at basically a year. Has encountered over 20 deaths so far in his career. And we were actually talking about, I was talking about it with one of the lieutenants the other day. I don't think I've ever had 20 deaths in 1 year in my career, and I've been doing this a long time. The volume of calls and the volume and the types of calls that we're going on, they wear on us every day. And we appreciate you as the board. We appreciate our community with the support we get. But it's a tough job, and kudos to those. Hiring is hard everywhere, and we've got great people coming in, men and women joining us in every division we've got, and kudos for them for stepping up. Because it's a tough job, and when we see, and we had this conversation the other day, reference to comparable wages, and when you see the comparable wages, rise in our area, housing prices going up in our area, it's hard to get good people, and we've got good people, but. Some of the stuff the garbage that we have to see and deal with is really taxing. And when I heard that number from a brand new person of him having to see that and deal with that volume of it in such a short time, it's tough. But most of us are not here. I don't want to say by choice, because we are here by choice, but it's really all we want to do is this job. Either you love it or you hate it, and a lot of times you love it while you hate it. So we appreciate everything that we get, from our board. Our staff is very fortunate. We're all very fortunate with our capabilities and our technology that we have. But I don't know. I'm up on my soapbox for a moment.
That's
but
okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I just...
Mr. Chair, if I may, Sheriff, can you explain the difference between a death investigation and a homicide investigation so the public doesn't think we've had 20 murders this year?
Absolutely, yes. Okay, good clarification. So, yes, our death investigations, we are the deputy coroners for every death that happens outside of a hospice situation. So, we're looking at those that, unexpectedly die in their home, in crashes, in the rare occasion, homicides, really everything that involves. So, we see a lot of the bad that most people don't realize that we are involved with. Oftentimes, in this case, we're looking at over 2 times a month that this one deputy is running into it. So yes, our clarification is our numbers for carjackings remains relatively low, 0. We're doing good on a number of fronts, and compared to if you go south a couple hours. So we've got a great community. We have relatively, we're not surprising. You know, our statistics of what we run into for crime, for calls for service, for public assist, for agencies help, everything that we do, we're not out of the norm. And we've got a great community and we've got great people. But yes, the clarification is needed there. We're not dealing with a number of homicides or suspiciousness. Most of these are natural. And as everyone knows, at one point in our life is going to come to an end. And we end up being the ones that are oftentimes there and seeing it and having to help the family through it. So.
Mr. Chair, could I just say one other thing? I understand that people are upset. They don't, nobody likes to pay taxes any more than I do. I hate them. But it's a case of like this. We need law and order. When we call 911, we expect somebody to arrive at our door as quickly as possible. I see the county engineer here. He's got, I think there's only about 38 people out there that are taking care of 600 miles of road. We have his staff down in my district where there was a lightning strike. Thank God nobody got killed. But these people are they're just trying to do their job. And so I don't know. I know we've got probably 6 or 7 days of work coming up for us for the county board on appeals on people's valuation, and we'll try to do the best job we can. But just want the public to know that we're trying to run this county as efficiently and not tax the hell out of you. And I think we're doing a good job, and I'm really proud of our staff. And I know there's been some angry people that have came in and are screaming at them and made some of the ladies cry, and I just, it ain't right, but they're just trying to do their job. But I just want to say I appreciate them very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, item 10. Steve or Rosemary?
Okay, I'll start. You kind of started into what we were going to discuss, and our property value increases are shocking, and I'm getting a lot of calls too. The Board of Appeals of Equalization is usually a one-day meeting, and right now, as of this morning, it's scheduled for 6 days. People are upset. I don't blame them. The state requires the county to base estimated market value on current sales, and the value needs to be within 90 to 105% of actual sale prices. If the county's values are outside of that range, the Department of Revenue may order the assessor to adjust the property values. In 2011, Minnesota's legislature decided to repeal the homestead market value credit and replaced it with a program known as the homestead market value exclusion. With inflation, the formula is outdated. This is a stressful time. We need to voice our concerns. And Commissioner Barrows and I serve on the MICA board, and these things are being discussed. So, Steve, what do you?
Mr. Chair, if I can just add, had the inflation been part of the $76,000 hard number that the legislature put in place in 2011, if they had adjusted that for inflation today, that number would be $110,000. And we know when it's not adjusted, that hits the lower income households harder than anyone else. So that's a problem in our area. So and this was according to a letter we received from the Mayor Cash from Crosby Ironton, she noted that particular item, but we also should ask our state legislature. They're the only ones that can solve this problem to address this issue, get it up to 110,000 and index it to the inflation rate so that it continues to address that for all of the properties that we have to value in our county. There's a couple circuit breakers that are allowed. One is based on income. I think we see that. A lot of people don't qualify for that. The other one is the 12%. If your taxes go up 12% or more, you can get some relief from that. There is legislation, we know, in the pipeline at the legislature currently to reduce that to 10%. That would be another good opportunity for the legislature to acknowledge the problems that we have out here in these valuations. But the biggest thing is that we want the state to do something now. This cannot wait until the next legislative session. This has to happen now for the taxes that we're going to all pay in 2023. So I can give a personal example. My house is worth $210,000 in 2023. It'll be $271,000. That's when it's going to hit the hardest for all of us. We need this legislature to address it now. So with that, I would make a motion to have the chair write a letter to our state electeds, impressing upon them the importance of doing it now, and let's get something done that really helps the property taxpayers in the state of Minnesota.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Franzine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll get on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members, I will draft a letter for the board chair's consideration. I'll copy you all so that you see it, and if there's any feedback before we send that, I would welcome that.
All right, our next item is a 10 o'clock hearing, so
Surprisingly, we're a little early.
got about 15 minutes before we can start that. I guess, and
Recess?
everybody else is,
So should we take a break?
do you have
Is
any stories
there-
to tell?
Well, I was just wondering if there's any national days or anything that we need to recognize.
Well, I believe this is Mental Health Month,
It is.
and I think we should acknowledge that, and the staff at Community Services and the Sheriff's Department, who all do a great job of dealing with those situations that occur out there on our streets. So let's not forget that that can impact any one of us at any time.
Exactly.
We're one episode or one event away from being in that same boat. So they are no different than you and I.
Thank you both. I guess at this point, we'll need to take a break and start the hearing at 10 o'clock on the Nelson Preserve Cartway, so, and we're not having any luck with the screen or...
Okay.
All right, it's 10 o'clock. We will start the Nelson Preserve Cartway hearing. Ryan, would you like to bring us up to speed?
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. So today we will be considering, or the board will be considering the route for the Nelson Preserve Cartway. I believe we have May 24th set for looking at the damages at the next board meeting, but today is mostly to focus on the route. And I have I don't know if you can pull that map up on the screen, but that handout that I provided shows there you go, shows three different route crossing options. And so these three options were, they were reviewed by Mr. Unger. He hired Wenck and Associates to evaluate the environmental impacts of these three routes. And so that's where I just took these three routes and, evaluated them myself. When we did the on-site visit out there, I believe the whole board was there and the affected owners, and we looked at Route 1 and Route 2, and we also looked at another option just slightly north of Route 2, closer to that wetland. So those were the three routes, and that's not shown on this map. Route 3 is on there because it was on that technical memo by Wenck that Ungers did. And so what you're looking at here is the red line is an existing road or driveway to Mr. Unger's house, which is right down by that Route 3 label. And then the yellow lines are kind of the new road construction that would be required to get to the Nelson Preserve property, which is that black line there. The light blue lines, that's my best guess of where the Nelson Preserves would then build a road down to where they would want to go. And they own both of those parcels there. I'm guessing they would want to get down somewhere close to the lake, being, lakeshore owners. That's kind of the more meaningful portion of the property, in my opinion. And so, looking at just the environmental impacts, in my opinion, Route 3 would be the least impactful because it's the least amount of new road construction, but it goes right in front of Mr. Unger's house, so I don't think that's a reasonable option. Route 1 is the longest, and it also includes wetland fill, and so I don't think that would be a good option either. So my recommendation is Route 2, and there's a zoomed-in map on the next page that shows just zoomed in on Route 2, and this is where we walked during the site visit. It kind of gets flat there with the contours, and then instead of turning to the south and continuing along Mr. Unger's driveway, the cartway path would follow that yellow line pretty much straight across. So that's about all I have.
Can I ask a question?
Okay.
Ryan, how, if you don't know the answer, that's okay, but from the red existing road to the property line that on Route 2, how far is that? Do you know how much that is?
It's approximately 300 feet,
300 feet? Okay.
approximately.
Right.
Mr. Chair, if I could, Brian, we just put a moratorium on anything in wetlands, in the shoreland. Would that impact Route 1 if that were the chosen route?
That likely would, because there would be significant wetland fill and, some sort of crossing to accommodate vehicles would need to be built, so.
Which would impact Route 1?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay, anything else, Ryan?
Nope, that's all I have.
Any other questions for Ryan?
Nope.
If not, we would hear from the Nelson Preserve folks first, and then we'll go to the landowner. I believe we got Mr. Kruger on, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members here. My name is John Middleton, and I'm one of the partners in Preserve in this property. We've hunted and eventually purchased this property. We leased it for a number of years, and then back in the mid-'80s, we bought it. Real quick, the majority of that road that you see on that map has been in there since I was in high school hunting. I know they made a different entry in the first part of that road. It came off of Harrison's property. And the last part of that road, I don't have a pointer. Here.
Mr. Unger, no one listening at home will be able to hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. This road came in, first of all, up on the main, off of the main road coming in off of this Marsh Point Road. They did make a different entry point into that. And then it picked up on the regular road, and it came in, and it comes all the way in here. In fact, that road comes through our property here. It would come right around here, and it would continue on into state land or county land, whatever it's state land or the county land there. And we had no interest in coming here. We understood the issue because the house built here. This was the simplest and cleanest route for us, and one which we had discussed early on with Mr. Unger, and we walked that road and we agreed that would be the place to come. It would be the least damaging. Obviously, this route here is impossible. I mean, you can take a look, and I did see the report that they received, which was created in January. I've hunted this property since I was a kid. That is all chest waders right in here. There's no way that we could put a road, or we'd have to build a bridge to get across that. And this doesn't make any sense, taking through all this wooded area and trees coming this way, when this piece right here is the simplest, and again, was one that we had talked and agreed upon that would be an entry at one point. The problem that we had now is that instead of purchasing the property for amount, it was a request that we give them part of our property, which we weren't willing to do. We want to keep our own property. And we think that with this Route 2 on this map, that there would be the minimal damage to the environment. It's the highest point around that pond that we could possibly, and closest to it, that we could go to and would be doing the least damage to the environment there. And the least trees would have to be removed at all for the road. So, thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right. Thank
Are there
you.
any questions?
Yep, we'll move on to, is there,
Mr. Chairman, I don't know, I know Mr. Kruger is on Teams. I don't know if he wishes to speak or not, if you want to give him that opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Middleton handled it fine for us. Thank you, Bud. Thank you.
thank you.
John.
Is there anybody, Mr. Unger, would you care to speak towards?
I think we're going to do, we have a couple people that's probably going to get the before me.
Okay.
Actually, all the other people.
And just a reminder that today's action is to just select the route that would, and then the next board meeting, we would then deal with the damages as far as the route selected.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name's Scott Duffney, and Vern Reynolds Construction and Aspen Creek Properties are the ones that did the development of this project, and I was the president of Aspen Creek Properties. So we've always been a partner, and we helped develop this whole thing and plotted everything all out. Mr. Middleton mentioned a cart trail. It was a goat trail at best. You couldn't even take a four-wheeler back there when we purchased the property. And that was in '99, because we started the construction. It was also in '99 and 2000 where we started doing and building the roads and putting everything in that we had to do, and it was a very intense, it was a large project. The trail that this cart trail or this goat trail, at the time you couldn't even get a four-wheeler through it. And I don't know if it was just because there was extra trees down or whatever the reason is, but at that particular time, we had a walk-in. There was a boat that was on now Mr. Unger's property, and I believe it was the Middleton's boat. I don't know if they used it for duck hunting or whatever, but there was a boat there. During the construction phase, we were probably a quarter away in it, doing the roads, and one of the people from the Nelson Preserve came and talked to us one day while we were out there working and wanted to know about an easement. And so Vern, that was the main person that he was talking to, and unfortunately Vern's deceased, so he cannot be here today. And wanted to know what it would take to get an easement from us. And we talked about it, and at that particular time, with the amount of money that we were spending to put in on this road, we told him $25,000. And we would do this for him because we didn't even have the lots plotted out yet. And we could get that easement in there for him. And this man became pretty much very arrogant and wanted us to bow down to him and said, well, I'm going to get this for nothing. And of course, we're like, we're spending $250,000 putting a road in and electricity and everything else, and you're acting this way towards us? And we're like, fine, we're not doing it. Well, as time went by, we finished everything, we sold the property off, and then myself, I've received 2 different phone calls on 2 different occasions where, and I don't know what person it was, because I do know that one of the people that were involved is now deceased. That was one of the owners on the Nelson Preserve. Also required and wanted this easement. And I said, it's out of my hands. I can't do anything right now. I go, I no longer own the property. We did the development. And he goes, well, again, very forceful that, we're going to get this and it's not going to cost us anything and we're just gonna go in and show you what the laws all are. Well, you know, we're in a situation where we gave them all the options. We wanted to work with these people, and they were just so arrogant and forceful that it was going to be, they wanted us to bow down to them, and it wasn't going to happen. But one of the things I can tell you, since '99, they have never asked, and we have never given them any permission at all to cross the property. They've never had access to it, why we've owned it. And since the development, I've never seen them back there at all. And I live pretty close by it, so I'm there quite a bit. They've got at the time when we did this, we had $250,000 just in the development of the road. The electricity that we brought in, the end of the line was a mile down 105 to the east, to the last resident. We had to bring power in from that point all the way down to Marsh Point and then all the way through. It was a long process. We had to get other easements from other property owners to get that electricity in. And then we had to clear a trail for their big machines to come in to plow all the electrical lines in. This was no little task. It was a lot of work, and it was a lot of time to get this all done. So again, you know, what we asked for was so fair and so neighborly, but yet it wasn't good enough for them. We've got, you know, when we look at the cost of putting this road back in 1999 and 2000 versus today, well, I think you guys got the idea of what it would cost now to do something like that. You'd be over $500,000 to do something like that. Let's see here. I think that, you know, Mr. Milk, you know, what they want here is something that I think could have been avoided out of just being neighborly to a kind of just a disrespectful situation where it was going to be their way or no way. And now we're at a point where we have this development. This road that we put in was not made for the public. It was made for this development. And it is a private road for all these landowners. And these landowners, each one of their lots that they purchased, that cost was associated in with that. You know, with electricity and everything else. And at today's prices, oh my goodness. And this is a situation where, you know, you talk about this cart trail. Wow, I was there. I walked it. We purchased it. You know, you couldn't even get a little four-wheeler through there, let alone a vehicle. There's no way. It couldn't be done. And with the work we did and what we established was for the residents that do own the property now. And the road is not, it was not built to sustain a high-traffic area. And I think there will be some pretty, I think there'll be some problems down the road with a situation where the way the road was construction and the maintenance that's into the road that we have to do right now. And I know that I just talked to them today, and they're already got a price with, it seems like every 2 to 3 years they have to do a maintenance, and it's, you know, it's not a couple $1,000s, it's several $1,000s because it's a long road. So I don't know what I could do to help make the determination, but I do know that Mr. Unger that owns that property there, I think that it would be it'd be definitely a detriment to have an access right behind your house. And then also too, that pond to the north there, it's a beautiful building site. You know, and that's one of the reasons why he purchased that property, because he wanted to put a cabin up there or or a little retreat cabin for some of his workers to come up and enjoy the area as well. So I just wanted to give you my input where I was. We were the ones that put it all in, and kind of tell you the history of it and kind of go from there.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, Scott, before you go, the board, could you...
Pardon me?
Could you pronounce your last name and spell it for the board and so they would have the correct spelling?
Sure. Duffney, Duffney.
Thank you. I just want to make sure they got that right.
Anybody else?
Morning. My name is Darren Huffman. I'm the first property owner on the road, and I have a little home there. It's probably about 300 feet in off of 105 on the Marsh Point Road, and my home is only about 108 feet right now from the existing roadway. And my septic system is there in my yard as well, in the front yard, and the tanks are, my two septic tanks are about 33 feet right now, or no, I'm sorry, 43 feet from the edge of that road. And of course, Crow Wing County has its septic setbacks, and one of the major concerns that I have is that if this gets turned to a public road, a cartway, and it's widened, then we're going to be basically encroaching on or going across, or that limitation that we have for distance from my septic. So then my septic system would have to be redone for my home. So, but with my home, I have there's only two small trees that are about halfway from the home to the roadway. I don't have any fencing. I don't have any shrubbery. I don't have anything that blocks the noise or cuts down on the dust. So, and it's gotten really bad over the last few years. People already drive way too fast down that road. I'm required once a year to wash my house because it's just covered in a layer of the red iron dust from the road. So that's, what I have to deal with. But it's like now, if there's going to be so much traffic on that road, I mean, my experience or the quality of my life is going to be greatly deteriorated. I mean, I'd come up there to get away from all the stress and the traffic and all the crap in the cities, and it's like, well, now my experience is basically no different than what you would experience, down in the cities. So, and since I purchased my property in 2008, so, I mean, we're talking 14 years ago, and a couple times during that time, I contributed to road maintenance, to significant road projects, and of course, I mean, that's been something that us, just as a community of property owners, have handled amongst us, because we're all fair and we understand, we know what needs to be done, we know kind of what it's going to cost, and then we break it up in terms of how much of the road that each of us are using, and we've all been fair to each other, and it's worked out really well. So, but one thing too that I'd like to think that Scott Duffney did a great job of kind of just laying the groundwork or the foundation for how this all kind of got started. But I think that the unwillingness to pay your fair share of the road and basically expect to have other people give it to you almost for free based on the work and the investment that they have in 20 years is I don't see that as being fair at all. So, but and I think I would be surprised if way back when they came to Scott after they had created the road and said, well, gosh, I've got property right over there. Why you guys got all your equipment? Could you just build me a road right over there? And I bet that if they would have been willing to pay $25,000 to Mr. Duffney and Vern, they probably would have made a road, and we all wouldn't be here right now. And then so Keith wouldn't have bought his place and spent 20 years and building a home and all the time and money investment he has in there to then have this thrown in his face 20 years later because of somebody who thinks that they're entitled to get something for less than what's the fair and equitable value of it that we as community property owners have all paid. So, And the major concern that we all have is, well, of course, the one thing is if this road is going to be turned into a public road, then I have the concern about my septic system and how that's going to be dealt with. But then if we're still accountable for the maintenance, then how is that going to be handled? Because I remembered that this was brought up back when we were here in court in October 2020, and you guys mentioned that, yeah, there's going to have to be a plan because, you know, it just is not going to, because we have people that are never going to want it. We have to deal with people now that are never going to do the right thing, never going to do the fair thing. They're always going to want to like get out of it without having to do what's equitable. And so it's like, well, then how is that going to be handled? Who's going to make the decision about what needs to be done and how is it going to be paid for? And, you know, I think that that's something that has to be like some legal binding agreement because, you know, the days of just neighbors being neighborly and kind and respectful to each other is kind of out the window with you know, the new folks that we're dealing with here now. But I and myself would like to have, in terms of damages, I'd like to be able to put some shrubbery or some screening up in front of my home to try to mitigate some of the noise and some of the dust that I have to deal with. And then, of course, there's the whole septic system issue if you know, if that's going to be encroaching and basically violating the setback from the roadway that's there. So. And it's really kind of ambiguous to me. I mean, I don't really know what it means if we say the road is 16 or 20 feet wide now. Is that just from the dead center of the road base that we drive on? And then you know, so then you basically add another 12 or 13 feet to 6.5 feet to each side of it? Or, you know, I don't know what exactly it means when it goes from a private to a public. And so, but when the specifics of that are determined, I guess we'll determine what will have to be done, or if something needs to be done with my septic system. So it seems like those questions need to be answered before damages would be determined, because otherwise, you know, we won't know. So, but.
All right. Mr. Chair, would you stand for a question?
Sure, yeah.
Where is your property? Can you point that out? Because we've got Route 1, Route 2, Route 3, and I'm just wondering where you.
Yes.
Is there a pointer there?
Yeah, see the Darren Huffman? Yeah, that's my property. That's my property right here. And so my home is right here, about 300 feet as you come in. And I've got probably like maybe an acre and a half on this side of the road, but then the primary portion of my property lies over here. And then I own basically about probably, I don't know, 400, 500 feet down, about halfway between myself and Mr. Antonson here, so.
Okay, so a question, if you'll stand for a question.
Yeah.
If you look at, and if I'm reading that correctly, like looking at this map, the proposed routes are way down at the bottom. There's no route that's going to be going by your septic system. I think they're going to be going by the existing road coming in. How?
Well, it's still the Marsh Point Road. I mean, that's the roadway that my house sits just right off of,
Right.
and then that's where my septic system is. I mean, that's the route that they want to take, and then once they use the road all the way down to where Keith's property is then now is the, you know, the ambiguous part of what cartway path will take. But the thing that's built in, right, is using the Marsh Point Road that already exists, that runs right in front of my property.
But all the other property owners use that road right by your house, don't they?
Right, yeah, they do. Yeah, sure, they do.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, if I might.
But it's, yeah.
I'm sorry, Darren. Commissioner Coring, the red line going through Mr. Huffman's property, Mr. Antonson's property, the LMC, all the way down to the recommended yellow line,
Yes.
will all be part of the cartway.
Will
And
all
then
be part of the cartway?
All be part of the cartway, as well as that yellow section is the only portion of the new road that would be built that would be part of the cartway. And the cartway would, to my understanding, the terminus would be at the Nelson Preserve property line, so it would be the recommended yellow, and all the way up the red to the public road would be part of the cartway that's being requested, if that clarifies your question. Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Huffman, but I just thought I could
Oh, no, I
shortcut
appreciate it.
that.
Yeah, anything to help kind of clarify things. Yeah, hopefully that helps.
Anything else?
No.
All right,
All right, thank you for your time.
Good morning, guys. My name is Mike Antonson. I got the second piece of property right next to Darren's, and I just want to clarify too that yellow line right where the red is there, that's 105. And then the cartway starts there and goes right in front of Darren's place, right by the septic tanks, and it's going to go right in front of my place. And I have two culverts in there too. They're probably about 4 feet off the road there. My biggest concern is the damage that's going to happen to the road. Just this week alone, we had a cave-in that we got to replace, which costs money, lots of money. But every 4 or 5 years, we all kick in some money as a team or whatever to, repair the road and stuff like that. My concern is where's that money going to come from with Mr. Middleton? Is he going to contribute, or is we going to have to, come here every year and beg for money from him? And I go up there a lot. I'm retired, and I've never seen him up there before. I'm there in the middle of the week all the time, and I've never seen him there. I mean, he made it kind of sound like he's back there all the time. He's not. So that'd be my biggest concern, and I really don't understand why he can't do the Route 1, because it should be just to get him back to his property, not what's convenient for him after that. So that's my biggest concerns, is the maintenance of the road and also Darren's septic system, something damaged with something that happened to that, and my property with the culverts and stuff. And there's also a culvert on Mr. Younger's property that's back there too that also has caved in before too, which had to be fixed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Well, I don't know if this is a question to you. It's a question to the Nelson Preserve guy. You said you bought it back in the 80s, or your partner back in the 80s. Have you never been into the property? How have you got into the property? Aren't you coming down that?
Mr. Chairman, if I might, Mr. Corning, or Commissioner Corning, you certainly can ask the petitioners any questions you want, but right now it's the landowner's opportunity to present, and this is a pseudo-judicial type proceeding, so you need to let that side finish, and then we can bring the petitioner back up and ask any additional questions. I hate to be an obstructionist, but we're going to have to follow somewhat of that format.
So who's saying we have to go by that format? Is that state statute?
I'm not trying to get into an argument with you. I'm just trying to give you my best legal advice in regards to the...
I am one of the governing bodies for this county, and I can ask questions when I want to ask questions.
I've given you my advice, Mr. Chairman. You may run the meeting how you would wish.
So with that, I'll just say one more thing. I've never seen him in the 15 years I own the property up there, and I'm up there a lot there in the middle of the week.
I didn't hear what you said.
I haven't seen Mr. Middleton back there ever in the 15 years I've owned the property. And I mean, he's claiming that he goes back there hunting and stuff like that all the time. I'm the second one in off 105, and all the people that own the property there, we keep an eye on other people's properties. We work pretty good as a team, maintaining the road, security, all that stuff. And like I said, and when I brought that property, it was under the stipulation that, it's private road. Now, if it turns into public road, that changes the whole game completely. And I did pay extra money, assuming that was going to be a private road. Thank you.
Maybe for clarification, Don, by doing this cartway, does that then revert the road to a public road? Doesn't that have to be adopted by a township or a county, for instance? I've heard that from a couple people that all of a sudden it's a public road.
A cartway, as it's established, unless the board makes it a private road, a cartway by definition is a public road, and the public can use it.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Sorry about that. I'm going to move this down a bit for short people. My name is Jeff Hoff. My wife Candy and I own that property, two properties adjacent to Mr. Unger, just to the east. We've owned it since 2005. We bought in because of the quietness, the wildlife. I don't know what Nelson Preserve means, but I can tell you this. Route 2, right where it branches off, where that yellow line meets the red line, there is a huge pine tree with an eagle's nest in it. I don't know what it is from eagle nest. You have to be set back for roads, but there's an eagle nest. If you start putting a road in there, you might disturb this eagle's nest. It's been there for 15 years. And I'm a disabled veteran. I love eagles, and I watch that eagle every day. I live up there full-time now, and that eagle means a lot to me and to my family. So I believe that's not a good option. I know also when we purchased our properties, We were told the price of our lot included about $20,000 to $25,000 per lot per 15 acres for the road. We own 2 lots, so we had anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 of our cost of our lots for the road. The maintenance, we all chip in. A couple years ago, we put in $10,000 as a group. We had the road done by a professional, and now just yesterday I had a bid come in because it needs it again for another $10,000 for that road to be maintained and redone again. So every 2 to 3 years, we're spending $10,000 to maintain that road that we split up as owners of the property. If Mr. Middleton comes in, I'm not sure how to get a hold of him to say, hey, pony up some money. In addition to that, each owner up there, from Mr. Carlson on the far east, Jeff Carlson, he owns a Bobcat. He spent $30,000, $40,000 on that and a dump truck. His brother, Mr. Steve Carlson, has a Gator with a dump. So those two and a V-plow. So they spend a lot of time and money and effort maintaining that road in the winter and the summer. I just happened to purchase a $60,000 tractor with a 78-inch snow blower yesterday, so I can maintain the road because we are there permanently now. We are residents of that property and maintain that. That is our place where we will retire, and I run my business from there. CTC just ran the internet from 105 all the way down to our property in January. So I've been up there full-time working my business. If you have to do anything with that road, you have to move all those wires for CTC. And what's that going to do to my business? I don't know how long I'll be down. So there's a lot that goes with this rather than just making a cartway for someone, since I've been there in 2005, I've never seen. And I'm there every weekend. My wife is there all summer because she's a school teacher for 4 months. We've never seen him till last October. Now all of a sudden he wants to get in on this beautiful road we made and then get in for nothing and pay nothing to maintain it. And we're going to be having to pay all those extra costs. Why he didn't do this when he was offered $25,000, you'll have to ask him. How has he been getting that property all these years? Nobody knows because we've never seen him. And he's never asked for anything to come across our properties. So my guess is now probably going to develop it and plot it all off, and we're going to have, I believe he has 60 acres, we'll have, who knows, 10, 15 more people going up down that road every day if that occurs. So our concern is to keep it a nice, quiet wildlife area with as least traffic as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Steve Carlson. I'm a little further down from where the cartway would end. And I guess my really concern is between Route 1 and Route 2, if you guys are going to put that in there. And all I really want to point out is where Route 1 ends, and you got that red line there. That's basically Keith's driveway, and Keith paid to put that in, okay? Where that little swamp is, there's a culvert there, and that's washed out before, taking that out. And my concern is if that turns into a cartway, then that's one more piece of expense that I have to join in with to fix, because we will divvy it up equally, okay? So that's one more expense. And then my other concern is ongoing maintenance with that cartway. Because I don't think anyone's said anything, but this Friday, I went up there and I hand shoveled about 3 yards of dirt due to one culvert caving in this last week. So I just want to point out the ongoing maintenance that has to happen and the expense that goes with it. And due to that being basically Keith's driveway, I would suggest if you give them access, you go with Route 1 rather than Route 2.
Thank you.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
My name's Jeff Carlson. I own the last 2 lots here. I understand you guys are trying to figure out Route 1, 2, or 3. If you look at the road, if you looked at the whole road coming down by Mr. Hoff's place, that was a swamp at one point in time. Keith's driveway was actually back in the 50s, from what I understand, was a field. And they put the culvert in there and it created that swamp, okay? If you go down to my lot, the second from the last, me and Steve bought those lots together, there's a marsh in between there. We had to come in through with waders when we bought the property and put a road through that as well. So I have 20 acres on the other side of the road I'd love to get to, but I have to stomp through it with my waders on if I want to go hunting or whatnot, okay? So Mr. Middleton gets to come in, and he gets the honor to come through all this stuff so he doesn't have to do what we've had to do. So I, again, think it should be the Route 1, and that gets him to his property. After that, it's his problems, just like me. Nobody's going to give me easement to the back of my property. I have to walk to it, but I can get to it now. And I had to get an easement to get back to mine through all these. So I don't think it's very fair that he's able to come in through all of our hard work and get his easement so he can go down to the lake and enjoy it. And me as well, I've been there since 2003. I've never seen Mr. Middleton in there. He's not approached any of us for anything. He's not offered to help. He's not asked for anything. And now he wants to come in and do this all for free. It's kind of frustrating on our end. So that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing. If Mr. Middleton does get this easement, does that give him the right to develop this? And if so, would he have to bring this road up to township specs at that point in time? Or is this going to get thrown back on these landowners again? Because he has, there's quite a bit of land there. There's a possibility of 8, 10, 12 lots. That's a lot of money on Lakeshore. I mean, we're talking millions, over $1 million or better. So there's a lot at stake for him to earn off of this property. We're going to lose. So I suggest if he does get this easement, it should be written in a fact that he's not going to develop it, or if he is going to develop it, he has to pay to bring this road up to township specs so the township can take it over. So these problems won't be here, and we won't have to come back in front of you guys again. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm Keith Unger. Well, thank you for your time. I'll try not to bore you with what these guys have all talked about, but I think it's important you know the history. Of course, Scott Duffney, and he told you that they had offered, to get in there for $25,000, and that price just come up obviously because that's what they thought each lot was, going to have in part of this road construction. About 2014, two of the Middleton brothers, I think it was John and somebody else, I was just having a beer at I was building my cabin at the time, and they said, "Hey, we're your neighbors. We'd like to come and talk to you about the easement." I said, "Okay." Offered them a beer. We had a beer, and we walked up, and I said, "Well, what do you think?" And they said, "Well, gee, right here in front of the cabin would be nice. The driveways are right here." I'm like, "No, I want privacy." So we did walk up by the what is now Lake, or option 2, and they're saying, "Well, right here would be good for us." And I said, "Yeah, maybe down by the closer to the pond, because that way I don't have to see cars going back and forth. They can say all they want, that they want to use it, quote unquote, just for hunting. If they want it just for hunting, there's no problem with that land bridge there where it's delineated by blue marks there. I mean, I've hunted, and I know that you usually don't have a manicured road right to your deer stand. So I did tell them, I said, "Tell you what, I'd be willing," they asked me how much money I would want, and I said, "I don't want money, I just want privacy. Why don't we do a land swap? You want some of my land, you give me, 5 acres so I don't have anybody living next to me." And they said, "No, that won't work." Thought it was a little ironic, they want my land, but they don't want to give me theirs. So anyway, about a few years later, they wanted to discuss it again, so they met me at a restaurant in Long Lake by my business. And they just, I reiterated that they wanted this easement. I said, "Guys, I've given you a fair offer, I just want privacy." "Oh, no, we won't do anything, we won't do anything." Maybe, maybe not. At this point, I'm not trusting them very much. In 2017, I got about a call from their lawyer in Crosby saying that they wanted to try and figure something out. I'm like, okay, fine. All along, I've known the Minnesota statute that land can't be landlocked, so I knew I'd have to give them something. I had no idea that they had the right to determine where it's going to go through my land. I mean, I can tell you this: you think about all yourself here. If you had your house the driveway coming in, and there was land next to you that somebody says, I need easement for it, and you said, all right, I understand it, just was through a deal with Nelson Lake Preserve. Why don't you just go right here on the driveway, just plop on over to your land? That'd be great, this other person says, but I want to go right behind your house here. That's what I find would be best. And you say, well, it's not best for me. This is exactly what's going on here. Of course, Route 2 is best for them. Of course it is. For me, it's not. And I'm the one been paying taxes. That driveway, and like one of the guys said, after you get off of Marsh Point Road, actually basically where the Route 1 meets the red mark there, I had to build that entire driveway. Just like 3 years ago, I just put 25 grand in my driveway. If I have a whole bunch of traffic, it's going to beat the heck out of it. And who's going to pay for it? I think they won't. We tried mediation last fall. We had our lawyers get together. I approached them 4 times with an offer, and the responses I got from them was no. Not no, maybe this, no, maybe that, no. They never come back with something else. The art of negotiation is just not in their, they are just that, they don't care of how it hurts other people. They want things the way they want it. This is a big deal. How would you guys like to have, traffic behind your house when there is a perfectly good option over on the other side? He's saying it's such a better way for environment. That's not true. We have an environmental, my lawyer will explain that to you. That land bridge there is not in a federally protected, it's not federally protected wetland. All the trees that would be on the north side of that pond there is small, softwoods, and have been decimated by beavers, so there's not a lot there. I walked there, and I did not get my shoes wet. He's talking about waders, wrong. If their problem is that they don't like getting there, how are they going to get, if they got their Route 2, how are they going to get to the north side? Do I have to give them a second access? How about maybe a third one, maybe a fourth, whatever's most convenient for them. This is the problem I have. If they can't get from the north to the south, how are they going to get from the south to north? That's about 15 acres there. If they would have been genuinely nice and said, hey guy, we're really sorry, man. We know that we're going to have to go through your property. What can we do to help you out? Because we know you're going to be inconvenienced. If they would have been just decent guys, man, we all get along pretty good. And we would have been good neighbors. We wouldn't be wasting your time here. And it's just, like Scott said, their arrogance is just oozing. The cartway law, in case none of you are lawyers, was not designed for hunting. It was for farmers to get to their farm fields. It has been now used for hunting and for any reason at all. They say they want, personally I think that they want a nice, like Jeff Carlson said, a nice manicured road that they can develop it off. I have no problem somebody developing off land, but not at my expense, not at my inconvenience. Again, this whole thing could be averted if they would have just, been nice. Problem is now too, if they get Route 2, where can I put a gate? Now with all this traffic, I want to put up a gate. Well, I can't put it at Marsh Point Road because I have to make sure that they can get in and out. How would you guys like to not be able to lock your doors? I'm not going to be able to do that. Do I give them a key? Do I have to, have to make sure that it's plowed for them? These people are asking an awful lot, You know, I know there's that saying, beggars can't be choosers. Well, they're choosing and they're begging. Whatever the valuation, or however that comes down, or the damages, I certainly hope that our taxes go down, because this is now, I think it was Darren that said, you know, he bought this here and paid a lot of money to get the privacy of a road. Now that's gone. I do want to apologize that you guys have to go through this stuff. I am truly a believer in just let's try and get along stuff, but this is not working out, and it's just, sorry, but it sucks. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Not at this time.
Okay, well, thanks for your time.
Could I ask a question?
You can.
This is just a question for maybe Ryan. I don't know, maybe I should just write down my questions and then I just ask them at the end, or how do you want to do it?
You can ask a question.
I'm just kind of, I'm trying to figure out what to do and what decision to make. So I guess my question is how big is this Nelson Preserve? I'm assuming that this is a 40 here, and then this looks like it's, you know, somewhat less than that. How many acres is it?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Coring, it's a 40 plus, I'm not exactly sure on the acreage here, plus maybe 30 roughly.
Okay. So, can I ask another question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, looking at that, well, I think by state law, if I'm right or wrong, Don, we're required to grant a cartway. Yeah, okay. So, are we required to grant a cartway just into here? Or are we, well, I guess maybe this is to Don. Where are we required to grant a cartway if it's just into that first 40 there? Are we required to grant a cartway so that they have access down to the lake? Or can it go right in to that high ground at the top of that 40? You know, follow what I'm saying?
I follow what you're saying. I might not use the correct terminology, and I'm sure your next presenter will correct me if I'm wrong on my terminology. Mr. Martin knows a lot more about this area than I do, but you have to grant them reasonable access to their property, or usable access. So you could grant any one of those 3 yellow routes, and in my opinion, it would legally qualify.
Reasonable.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be where they want it, it just has to be reasonable so that they have the use of their property.
Okay. That helps. All right.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is David Myers. We've met before, and that was my first point. They're rewriting cartway law. You just have to get them to their property. And there's a lot of property in this county I'm familiar with that has wetlands and trees and gullies and whatever. Well, that doesn't mean you got to grant everybody a cartway just because I want to get to a different part of my property. That's 15 acres up there. The only case law, the case law that Mr. Ryan's referencing was down in Lake Pepin, and somebody wanted to come directly, as I remember, up a very steep hill off of Highway 61. And the court, because they wanted to avoid an orchard of trees, and the court said, no, that's not reasonable to make people drive pretty much up an incline. But here, Route 1 is 15 acres, and I respect Mr. Ryan back there, but the analysis isn't on the petitioner's land. The analysis is just on Keith's land. That's the one being lost. Whatever they got to do to get to their own land and wherever they want to go on their land, that's their business when they get on there. That's not the cartway business. That's their business. So we did do an environmental report, like Ryan said. We had Wink and Associates. They probably do work for your county because we're on the top in the state. And they decided that Route 1, that North 1, was the least intrusive because there's a substantial amount of ironwood and oak and other old-growth trees in 2. And that's what you'd be wiping out, all those trees. And one is beaver daw and crap. And then the report that I gave to Mr. Ryan was that less than 1/4 of the trees would be damaged if you took Route 1 and you went down there. So that's why we were there. If you're going to start granting cartways because people have various problems with their land, you're going to have them all over the county here. I mean, you have to get him to his land. He's got 15 acres on the north side. How he gets to the south side is his business. That's not for the board, I don't think, to consider, and with due respect. Second, on maintenance, a lot of these guys have come with maintenance. There's an existing private easement right now that all these people on this road have to pay to maintain it. And I gather from talking to them, they're all getting along. Everybody pays whatever they got to pay, and they chip in as they have to chip in. If it becomes a cartway, then you're involved every year. If they can't agree, if somebody says, I don't want to pay my way, then 16408 says we come back in front of the county board, in this case, and you figure out who owes what, and you make that decision annually, and then, or whenever they got to do this, and then it becomes a judgment if that happens to be that way. But you're going to become the arbitrator of who's going to have to pay for that road if they can't figure out how to do it themselves. Somebody talked about a public road. The cartway statute, you know, it was written in about 1915, so it doesn't exactly fit the way we fit today. The cartway statute by default is a public road. This is going to be a 33-foot wide public road. Only after the cartway's built, if the affected owners can get together, by resolution, you can make it a private road. I've probably done 30 of these. I've never seen people get along that well. It always becomes a public road. Unfortunately, that's what it is. So you're taking a public road from these people, and that's what it's going to be. I know we're not talking about damages today, but the last time I was here, the first time I was here, I said, you got to put $250,000 aside. And I knew about all these people. I knew what this was going to be like if you start coming down that road with 33 feet and you go over to Keith's property. Well, the county board said 70,000. Okay, you know, that was fine. And then last meeting you said, well, 20,000, but today you're going to revisit what that's going to cost, because before you go forward, you got to have a deposit. The Court of Appeals has said it's incumbent on townships and the county board here to get enough money on deposit so that if you grant the cartway, there's enough money in your account to pay it. Well, we used a company called Compere. They're actually a lending company, but they're a major appraisal company in the woodlands and in farmland. And I said to them, I want a very conservative appraisal. I don't want to go way off on this thing. I want a conservative appraisal to know what it's going to cost just on Keith's land, only Keith, not the road coming down. That south route, the route number 2, $180,000 because of the damage you're going to do, the reduced value because of the loss of privacy to Keith's property. That appraisal is $180,000. That northway is $60,000. It's still substantial, but that's the cost in today's market of what you're going to do. So I'm asking you, if you're going to proceed to the next step after today, that you get at least $250,000 here, because you've heard these people say what that's going to cost to take land. You're taking land from one private party and giving it to another private party.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? You
Yeah.
said, I think your words were the county board is incumbent, it's incumbent on the county board. What does that mean?
Should I read you from the Court of Appeals? It means, just a second. This was a case out of Mille Lacs County, and it was somewhat similar to this because all these people went through, and the town board collected, I want to see, $20,000, because they didn't think the damages were very much. And so it went to district court, because that's what happens. If people don't like what you do here, you can appeal to the district court. And district court pushed the damages up to $250,000. And then the town was criticized for not getting enough money. But here's the case. It's Ratfield v. Zuckerman, and the Court of Appeal says it is incumbent on the township, because of the township there, to take the appropriate action to either collect or secure just compensation for the cartway damages, which are payable to the township, to record before finalizing the cartway order. So The Court of Appeals recognized it was not fair in that case that a cartway order got signed, but nobody ever paid the money for it. And so they're saying now it's incumbent on the board to get the money in advance before you proceed to do a cartway, so that the cash is there to compensate all these people for what you're taking away from them. And if it's too much money, well, then maybe you don't do the cartway. I guess that's up to the applicant.
So, Mr. Chair, so I'm just a humble farm boy from south of Crow Wing County, so I don't know all the lawyer stuff and the city's slicker stuff, but incumbent, so is the court saying that the court can't, first of all, I don't think they can tell us, we go by statute here, but when you say incumbent, I still don't understand what you're saying.
Sure.
Is it that we're required to do that? I mean, is that what that means?
I'm not sure I'd go as far as required, but you're taking land from a private party, so
Right.
you're responsible to make sure there's enough money here to pay those private parties. I think that's what the court is saying. It's incumbent on you to make sure there's enough money in your account to do it. I will say, you're not liable for this, but the way it works is if you issue this cartway order and you say, I'll just pick a number, $100,000. The cartway isn't open until the $100,000 is paid to the or the county administrator here, and then they pay the property owners. But what happened in Mille Lacs County is the money never got paid, so you have this order sitting out there forever, and who knows who's supposed to do what. And so the Court of Appeals said that can't happen again. So you need to get some money in the bank.
So, Mr. Chair, so even if we choose the route, though what we've decided to do, at least what the county board has decided to do is choose the route today and choose the damages at the next county board meeting, that's doing our incumbent work, isn't it, or?
Yes,
or you make it sound like we have to put a number on it today.
Well, you said last time, when it was set, after the first meeting, you said $70,000. Then Mr. Middleton came back and said, I think that's too much. So then you said, today we'll figure out the deposit. We'll do $20,000, which he paid, and we'll do the rest today. So that's what I'm saying. You told us that last time. You were going to revisit the question of the deposit, not the damages, but the deposit today. And how much money, that was my understanding of that's why you reduced it from 70 to 20, is my
I
understanding.
guess Mr. Chair, I don't recall that. Don, was that the way it was, or?
We'd have to go back and relook at the minutes,
Okay.
but there was
All right.
discussion on that, Commissioner Corn.
Okay.
Anyway, the final request I'd make is would you ask the petitioner to stake the land so everybody knows what's being taken? They have a legal description, and whichever route you come up with, could you stake it so people know exactly what you're asking to do? And that will help with the damages, just figure out who's got what. So, with that, the only thing I would say is you don't have to consider what happens on the petitioner's land as long as you get him to his 15 acres. It'd be new cartway law if you're going to start giving cartways out for people who are somehow, you can't get from one part of their land to another. So I'm open for questions.
Any questions?
None for him, but I still have that question that I wanted to ask. Whenever that's.
None right now, thank you. Commissioner Coring? Did you have a question?
Yeah. Would it be the right time or not?
Sure.
Okay. I guess my question is I don't even know what the guy's name is. I'm sorry about that, Mr. Middleton. So you said something about the 80s, so you've been an owner of this since the 80s. Have you never been on the property?
Well, that's what's interesting. One minute I'm being accused of having a freeway going through for like a metropolitan area, and the next minute nobody sees us. My brother Pat hunts there, and that's where a number of these gentlemen have met my brother Pat. He hunts the deer hunting. I used to duck hunt there quite a bit. The reason I haven't been out there that much lately is, as you heard earlier, my brother passed away. He was my brother Bill. He was a dentist in Crosby, and he came down with cancer. And as soon as he was actually dying, my wife came down with cancer. So I had more important things to do than go duck hunting.
Okay, so my question is how did you and your brothers, and how did have you ever accessed it? I mean, if you don't
sure.
have
Of course.
how do you get in there?
The goat road was I could take my mother's country squire station wagon and drive out to Auding's property, which was what this was bought from. Marv Auding used to own it, and that used to be the Lund farm, used to sit right down in here. Our property here, this was where we used to come in and camp out right here, sit here, and then we drive in the rest of the way and we would hunt. So the fact that that's a goat farm is not correct, and you can talk to Dick Harrison, who's a neighbor. We drove in there for years with our trucks and with our cars. Where we had the problem was when this pond would actually come over this road. Right here is where that beaver dam would come over the road. Then we'd have to take our four-wheelers to get around, to get back and bring our equipment down to the lake. But as you can see, this pond now is much drier than it was back in those days, and there's a culvert there now.
But let me stop you there. So I still don't understand. So you were actually had to go through somebody else's property and then you just cross over into yours, and they were letting you?
That's right. That's right.
They were letting you?
Oh yeah, we got along fine with our neighbors then. It wasn't a problem. But evidently we have a bunch of people from one area of the state that got together and bought the pieces of property here. And my brother Pat has hunted out there, deer hunted with his friends. And I know that several of these people in this room have sat around a campfire with them when they've been deer hunting. And so, but I haven't been out there that much as my brothers had gone out. But I've had hunted with friends of mine out there, used to duck hunt there all the time.
So now, Mr. Chair, so now, without the permission of some property owners there, you have no way to access your property?
Well, this was the deal we were proposed to us by Mr. Unger. When he claims we walked through the woods and sauntered around there and we didn't agree upon what would make us an entry point, that's when he was requesting that we give him part of our property. And we said we would ask, why don't you come up with a price? We'd be happy to look at that. And he never came up with a price. Mr. Reynolds mentioned earlier that our Unger, excuse me, not Mr. Reynolds, but Duffney mentioned that he had proposed something to one of us. Now, my brother Bill is gone, and I still know Bill was alive when we talked about this. And my brother Pat, I have never been talked to.
You know what, I know there's a lot of people going back and forth and a lot of emotions and everything, but I have to make a decision.
Sure.
So just please answer just the question. So right now, if nobody gives you permission to go across their land, you have no way to get into your property. Is that correct?
Here's what the proposal was from Mr. Unger, is we would have it.
No. How about right now?
Do we
care.
have permission to go across anybody else's land right now?
Yes.
No, none.
Oh, okay.
None. It's the same road, like I said, it was the goat road that we used to take in there. And it wasn't a goat road.
There's no access.
They're basically landlocked today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can, Ryan, if I could ask you a question. Your recommendation was Route 2. Have you walked, is that because of the wetland crossing? Why are you recommending 2 over
Mr. Chair,
1?
Commissioner, my understanding after talking to Don was the access needed to be reasonable, or I believe we used the term meaningful in the past. And so my thought process was they own a quarter-mile of lakeshore there. They're probably going to want to get towards the south end of that property. And so my opinion, my suggestion was that meaningful access meant to that south portion of the property. And I didn't think Route 1 would provide that access, given the challenges with the wetland.
Did you walk that and see what that wetland is like, where that crossing point would be?
I have not been out there to that wetland location, but.
Okay.
Well, we were out there, but I don't know that we walked over there.
I don't think we did. I don't recall.
Actually, some did. Can somebody refresh me on, I mean, it's been a couple of years. Ryan, can you refresh me with the pointer on where did we walk in? We walked into the Nelson Preserve property. Where's the pointer?
Somebody have the pointer?
Somebody took the pointer.
Uh-oh.
We got it. It's not like it had happened to any.
There
use
goes the
anywhere else.
access.
Could you, I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Commissioner?
Well, I just wanted to kind of try to remember from 2 years ago when we were all up there. Where did I know we went all the way down and then we went across somebody's property, and I believe the Nelson Preserve, don't you have like a house or a cabin or something on there?
Yeah, we parked.
Oh, okay, that's where we walked through their yard, huh?
Yeah, we parked up here along County Road 105, and then we drove in most of the way. We got out and stopped, or some people walked, some people drove, and we went all the way down this route. And I believe we stopped kind of here to look at this option. We didn't walk into here though, to this wetland. We just stayed on the road. And then we walked up here, and I believe we ended right about here at this option.
And we walked by somebody's house, didn't we?
Yeah.
Might walk down to it.
Where is it?
There's a couple houses right up here.
That first gentleman right there.
No,
Near the
I
road.
mean, I thought
Houses
once
down
we went
towards
off
the
that
end.
road, there was kind of a pond, and then we kind of went around it.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can pipe in, my memory is that Route 1, that top yellow line, Commissioner Brecken and I and Mr. Unger did walk that property over. We didn't go all the way over to where the wetland narrows down there, but we did walk quite a ways across there. Then we also walked the middle yellow line and walked probably halfway across that wetland, or at least over to the property line, or what we considered the property line on that one. I did not, and I don't know if any of the other commissioners went down to Mr. Unger's home, which is that third yellow line way on the bottom of the picture. But that's what I remember about our trip out there at that time. So, at least for me personally, I did see the north one and the south one over to the property line.
Okay. Mr. Chair, can I ask another question of Don? Don, so let's say hypothetically the board chose the first one, then the people that from the first one all the way out to the township road, those people would receive damages, and then anybody that's down below that one would not receive damages? Is that how it would work?
If I may rephrase your question to make sure I understand,
Okay.
Commissioner Coring. So if I start at 105, you have Mr. Huffman, Mr. Antonson, the LJM properties, and then you get down to Mr. Unger's property.
Yes.
All of those, I believe, would be entitled to consideration for damages for the cartway. Once you get to the Huffs and Mr. Stephen Carlson's and Mr. Jeffrey Carlson's, there still is potentially a legal impediment or some damages that could be considered for their interest in the road as it's established before you branch off from what is considered Route 1 on top of that wetland area. And of course, it would be for you to determine, but obviously the damages for them would be much less than the damages for the property that's actually being crossed over. And I believe their main concern, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, was mostly the maintenance and those types of things, which they're all maintaining, which I believe is legitimate. And you should consider when you're looking at awarding damages, regardless of which route you would take, because their property interests are still impacted.
Mr. Chair, if I can ask too, Ryan, at Route 1, at the Route 1 point, is that a Y? Is there a place, does that give access then to Hoff and Carlson? Is there a road there that goes, would that be like how do they get access to theirs?
Marsh Point Road, you can hardly see it on the map, but it continues.
Right, but that's their access.
That's their access.
Okay, so one would be kind of a point where it changes the traffic flow both directions.
Correct. Yep, this would be the farthest that the proposed routes would currently go along Marsh Point Road. And then
Right, and then there's a road that takes to the other properties.
Yep, south of this point is Mr. Unger's driveway, and west of this point would be a new road construction if that route were chosen. Yep.
Mr. Chair. Ryan, if you go further north, so that you could just get into his property at the very top, are there wetlands there, or is there a reason that you went down further on that parcel?
You mean like if we were to cross like up here?
Yeah.
I believe those are wetlands.
Okay.
Yep. There's a pretty narrow stretch that could work right through here. Yep.
So, Mr. Chair, I do have a whole lot of questions about cartways and who's paying for this and that, but I'm trying to focus because the only reason we're here today is to choose the route, correct? Right now. So I'm trying not to get, you know how I always have a lot of questions, but I'm trying to focus. Don, I'm trying to focus in on one question.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Well.
What are the wishes?
Let's wait till Commissioner Barrows, is he gonna?
Mr. Chairman?
Is that Mr. Kruger?
I believe so.
Mr. Chairman, yes. Could I address the board?
Sure.
Thank you. Of course, I have to address what Mr. Meyer told you since I'm on the opposite side of this question. But he made a statement that, you know, if you could access your property, and let's say it is this property where you have about 70 acres, if you could access 15 acres, that's good. You didn't have to access anymore, and no other access need be given. That is true if you could access the property. But when you are landlocked and you cannot access any of it without a grant from an authority such as yourselves, then that access must be reasonable. Now, if you access over route number 1, you access 15 out of 70 acres. That's what a court looks at too. When Mr. Meyer brought up the case about one person was given access, but he could only access a small part of it, and he couldn't access the rest, whether that be because of a hill or whatever, the court said that wasn't meaningful access. Were you to grant option number 1, you're leaving 45 acres. You're giving 15 acres that could be accessed, 45 acres that could be not, and I submit that that would not be meaningful access. The only second thing I want to talk to you about is the Mille Lacs District Court file, Radfield versus Zuckerman. And we're talking about upping the ante here before you move forward. But what, I think I wrote it down, quoted Mr. Meyer, he said something about collecting or securing the payment, but then he said a couple other words, and then he said before finalizing the order or before you proceed. So the way that you protect yourselves in that is that you do not finalize the order until such time as the damages have been determined and have been paid into the county. Once you finalize the order, then you have problems collecting. And I think we mentioned that in the last time we met. So what I'm saying is you determine the damages. You then have those deposited before you finalize the order. And nothing can proceed until that order is finalized and filed. And so Mr. Meyer's request that if the route is determined, that you ask the petitioners to survey the route is very reasonable and I think needed, and has been discussed with the Middletons already in order that the exact location of the cartway can be determined by the landowners and by the Middletons, and the board then can adequately address the issue of damages. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. I think we're at the point of selecting an option. And if no one is, I would hand the gavel over to the vice chair, and I would make the motion that we would select Route 2 for the reasons. Route 1 would have a much larger wetland impact, and Route 3 obviously is on the front doorstep of Mr. Unger's property. That said, Route 2 is, I believe, the happy medium, and I will leave it at that.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt Route 2 for the cartway. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to select Route 2 as for the cartway, and a second from Commissioner Barrows. All in favor?
Mr. Chair?
Oh,
Discussion.
discussion.
What's that?
Any discussion?
Any discussion? Okay.
Sorry to slow you down.
Okay, if we can take a vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All the same sign, passed, okay. Route 2 has been selected for the cartway.
Mr. Chair, whoever is Mr. Chair at the moment.
What's that?
There was a request by Mr. Meyer, and Mr. Kruger said that the petitioners, Mr. Middleton, had no objection, that the board require a survey of the route. Once it was selected, I think you should have a formal resolution directing the petitioners to have a survey completed and back to the board in time for the damages hearing.
Which is, we've identified the next meeting as the meeting to determine damages.
That's correct.
So within
that's
2
either really
weeks.
quick, or you're going to have to reconsider some of that, but if both sides are agreeing that it needs to be surveyed so you can adequately determine damages, it is an issue the board should consider.
And I would, Mr. Middleton's suggesting that's doable, so we will, do we include that in the motion, or?
Well, I think we need a separate motion, don't we?
Okay.
Separate
So
motion.
I'll make that motion to require a survey for the Route 2 that we've chosen today.
Second.
From the petitioner?
Pardon me?
By the petitioner?
By the petitioner.
Second.
Okay, so I think, did you hand the gavel back?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Coring, to require a survey
By the petitioner.
by the petitioner prior to the meeting to set damages. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Chair, I ask you, that means staking the survey. I mean, there's a survey map that you're asking to stake.
Yes.
I
Yes.
State.
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
All right, I think step 1 is done. And we, again, the next meeting, 24th, we will be determining damages. So if you're interested in that phase of this, we'd love to see you back.
Yes.
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock. All right.
Make the motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Barrows, second by Commissioner Coring to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.